The lesson from Monday's episode of The Bachelorette? By all means, parade around in gold underpants. You may be embarrassed about your lack of serious intentions, but you will live to see another group date. But dare to use the L word insincerely and you'll be handed your butt on the way out the door. Jean Blanc learned that lesson when he came on too strong during the group date, telling Becca Kufrin he was falling in love with her. And when she told him she couldn't reciprocate those feelings and sent him home, he suggested that he'd just been telling her what he thought she wanted to hear. Colognoisseur Jean Blanc, seen an earlier date, sprang the L word on Becca Kufrin during the June 18th episode of The Bachelorette. Paul Hebert, ABC, that had Becca threatening to send home anyone who wasn't being honest with her, which seems kind of silly seeing as Jordan is still around. I dunno, maybe the male model convinced himself that he wanted to be with Becca while making the show, but it's more likely he's there just to further his modeling career, as his archenemy David claims. At the very least, it's obvious the great love of Jordan's life is himself. Becca couldn't keep a straight face when Jordan tried to kiss her on the group date, but as long as Jordan's providing comic relief and fodder for feuds, Becca keeps giving him roses. Becca purported to be shaken up by Jean Blanc's alleged deceit, but it was more disturbing for viewers to watch her get closer to Garrett Irigoyen, the contestant who was outed for liking offensive Instagram posts. Garrett is a serious frontrunner at the moment, and if the posts he liked, including one mocking a Parkland school shooting survivor, are true reflections of his opinions, then yikes. Article continued below. Combine that with the news that Lincoln, who's also still on the show, was convicted of indecent assault and thinks the earth is flat, and fans have good reason for feeling a little queasy. Luckily, we got a palate cleanser from Becca's date with Wills, the adorable graphic designer whose social media accounts haven't turned up anything unsavory, thank goodness. Here are the episode highlights. Rose Ceremony Number 1. You'll recall that last episode ended without a rose ceremony after Clay left with his injured wrist. Becca seemed very upset when Clay went, but not so much that she couldn't canoodle with Blake and talk about how many children she wanted, or give Jordan his shiny skivvies. I think Becca might have my groin on her mind and maybe she thinks it's worth gold, Jordan boasted about his gift. He also suggested that David falling out of his bunk bed and smashing his face was divine retribution. I talk to God every day and people who go against me just end up hurt sometimes. Well, maybe the Almighty isn't as big a fan as Jordan thinks because David returned from the hospital, looking a little swollen and bruised but not like a time warp, as Jordan suggested, and not only did Becca give him a rose, she gave it to him right away so he could get some rest and not wait around for the rose ceremony. Then she handed out another 12 roses, sending Ryan and Mike home. Article continued below. No. 1 with Garrett, the 15 men who remained headed to Park City, Utah, where Becca and Garrett did a combination of the tourist date, let's try on goofy fur hats, and a scary physical activity date, bobsledding. Olympic silver medalists Shauna Robach and Valerie Fleming were there to guide them. Some of the social media posts tied to Garrett were reportedly homophobic, but Garrett declared it was awesome when Valerie told him and Becca that she and Shauna had fallen in love, gotten married and had 2 children. Key takeaways from the date were that Becca said she trusted Garrett and could see a future with him, and that Garrett revealed that he had been married before but only for 2 months to a woman he claimed was emotionally abusive. Becca chose to interpret the fact he married her despite red flags during their previous 2.5 years together as signs of his loyalty and commitment. Garrett talked about wanting a partner he shared the same values with, a red flag for viewers given Becca's apparent liberalism, and Becca gave him the date rose. Then they smooched and danced as country singer Granger Smith performed and the crowd ignored him to take video of Becca and Garrett. The group date: Jordan, Chris, Blake, Nick, John, Lincoln, Leo, David, Connor, Kristen, Jason, Colton and Jean Blanc got to troop off into the outdoors, don lumberjack shirts and participate in Becca's big lumberjack bash by splitting wood, sawing logs, throwing axes, pushing logs end over end and climbing up a 30-foot pole. Shockingly, mild-mannered software engineer Jean won the contest, but all he got was a trophy and bragging rights. Everyone went to the after-party, where Becca got smoochy with Jason, a very good kisser, she giggled, and Colton. Jordan used his alone time to strip to his gold briefs and try to kiss Becca, although she ducked his first attempt. But when he danced back to the other men in his sketch, Colton tried to talk to Jordan about being disrespectful, but the chat devolved into a bunch of bleeped-out swear words and Colton calling Jordan a clown. Then there was Jean Blanc, who showed a single-minded determination to get the date rose. His strategy involved giving Becca a custom-blended bottle of cologne, he is called a colognoisseur, after all, a rather awkward kiss, and then returning to interrupt Lincoln, that part was fine, and tell Becca he was truly falling for her. It was all too much for Becca, who said the sparks she once felt for Jean Blanc were no longer there. As she walked him out, Jean Blanc admitted what he said he felt was not necessarily where I'm at. I just thought that, you know, that's where you wanted to take things and you were ready, and that's what you wanted to hear. Becca was fuming by the time Jean Blanc left with a half-hearted hug. She told the other men, if anyone else can't be honest from here on out then I don't want you here, declined to give out the date rose and left. The next day she claimed to still be upset to the point of tears. Date with Wills. We were supposed to think that Becca was so shaken up by Jean Blanc's falseness and its supposed reminder of her breakup with Ari Luyendijk Jr. that she might not give Wills a rose. As if. After a snowmobile ride, Wills and Becca snuggled outdoors by a fire and Wills said he just wanted to make Becca comfortable and happy, which he did with forehead kisses that turned into full smooches. At dinner, Wills shared that he'd also been hurt by someone, a woman he dated for 3 years who cheated on him. And he and Becca bonded over their mutual fear that they wouldn't be good enough for their next partner. But Becca assured Wills he was amazing as she handed over the date rose. And then there was some serious kissing, like up against a wall kissing, which is often a sign of longevity on this show. Rose ceremony number 2, Becca decided to skip the cocktail party, which was bad news for guys like Nick who hadn't made much of an impression. Sure enough, Nick got sent home along with Kristen. Roses went to Leo, Colton, Blake, Jason, Connor, David, Lincoln, John, Chris, David and Jordan, who groused about never being last place in anything in my entire life. There's so much more to me than these guys think, he complained. Much like a sponge you can squeeze me and get everything out of me, but you'll never know unless you try. What the hell does that even mean? He also promised a big move that could turn him from Captain Underpants to Captain Just Took Everyone's Girl. Good luck with that. Next week's episode is in Las Vegas, and there'll be alone time with Garrett, Colton and Blake, and what looks to be the season's first 2-on-1 with Jordan and David. Don't forget to pack your gold trunks, Mr. Pensive. You can watch Monday at 8 p.m. on City. And you can email me at dyeo@thestar.ca, tweet me at realityo, or visit my Facebook page.